artists, this is Mrs. DiStefano, and I am here to talk to you today about the Baroque in Spain and France. We have been talking about the Baroque in art class, and we started by looking at the art of Italy. In Italy, the Baroque time period took place between 1590 and 1680, and the main emphasis, as you may have noticed, was religious artworks. The main patron or supporter of these artworks was the church. The style was dynamic, it was dramatic, it was intense, and there was a lot of movement. Today we're going to be looking specifically at the Baroque in Spain and France. In Spain, the Baroque time period took place between 1625 and 1660. The main emphasis, instead of being religious works, was court patrons and court portraits. These were paid for by the monarchs or the wealthy members of society, and they wanted these artists to paint pictures of them. The style was very realistic, and it was very dignified. You're not going to see the drama in the Spanish artwork that you did in the Italian artwork. In France, it's even more restrained. The French Baroque time period happened last, between 1670 and 1715. The main emphasis was classical landscapes and decorative architecture. The wealthy members of society, again, were paying for these works, but they were very pretentious, and you're going to see a lot of Greek styles and influences because the artwork is going to have a lot of order and ornamentation. Our goals for this lesson are that you are able to understand that Baroque painters in Spain and France created their own styles that were different from the Baroque in Italy. They also built upon techniques that were pioneered by earlier Renaissance artists. Take a look for this check mark throughout our lessons today. This check mark is going to let you know that there is a quiz question involved. Our goals again are that Diego Velázquez, who is our Spanish artist for today, involves the viewer in his paintings by creating a believable space and creating eye contact between the subject and the viewer. Now, unlike Caravaggio, who we looked at in lesson 1.04, we see that Diego Velázquez uses natural lighting coming from windows in his artwork instead of the dramatic lighting that Caravaggio loved to use. In France, we'll see Nicolas Poussin use a classical approach to his artwork and arrange the natural elements in his painting to create an idealized artwork. The big idea is that works of art can reflect political, religious, and social beliefs and attitudes of the time and place in which they were created. The fabulous 4 facts. You know how I love to give you these things you should know about this time in history. Well, this is the 17th century, and during this time period, remember Italy was coming out of the 30-Year War. Well, Spain was coming out of these wars too, and Spain lost the power that it had had during the Renaissance. Because of the fighting during that 30-Year War between the Catholics and the Protestants, Spain was now a divided nation, and their armada, or their Spanish navy, could no longer protect them from invasion. The Spanish artists continued to create masterpieces that glorified their country, but honestly, they masked their problems. They were not very realistic and true to what was going on in Spain during the 17th century. France, however, emerges from the 30-Year War as a stronger nation. The French kings begin building overseas empires that by 1660 controlled parts of North and South America, the Caribbean, Africa, and India. France's prosperity meant that kings had money to spend on commissioning magnificent works of art, and Louis XV from Versailles was no exception. We're going to look at him a little bit more when we do our Rococo lesson. The Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture was established in France. Now, you might think this is something that doesn't necessarily apply to you, but it does, because the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture had strict control over the style of art that was created, and they insisted that every French artist look to classical Greek and Roman art as their standard. And you'll see that in today's lesson. You'll see that the French artist had a very Greek and Roman classical style, while the Spanish artist kind of got to do his own thing. Let's meet our artists. The first artist is our Spanish artist, Diego Velázquez, considered one of the finest painters in Baroque Spain. Spain, it was often said that their major gift to the art world was Diego Velázquez. Velázquez was born in 1599 and lived until 1660. He was extraordinarily precocious, it was said, and while still in his teens, he painted pictures demonstrating total technical mastery. By the age of 18, he qualified as a master painter. He was greatly influenced by the Italian painter Caravaggio, but as I mentioned before, he uses natural light instead of Caravaggio's tenebrism. His early art career included many genre scenes, just like Caravaggio, with everyday people gathered in markets and taverns. This was a really popular subject in Baroque Spain. But the opportunity of a lifetime happened at the age of 24. His first painting pleased Philip IV so much that the king asked Diego to paint his portraits for the rest of his life. This meant Diego Velázquez was never without a job, and the king never had a portrait painted by anyone other than Velázquez. For the rest of his life, he was able to develop his own magnificent style. His most famous painting is Las Meninas, that we actually explored together in Unit 1. This painting is sometimes called the world's greatest painting. It was considered a masterpiece. Pablo Picasso in later years paid homage to it by doing a series of 44 variations of this artwork. Velázquez took seriously Leonardo da Vinci's dictate, "The mirror is our master," and he tried to approximate what he saw as closely as possible over his years working on a canvas. Now, when you first look at Las Meninas, I hope you're able to see that this painting is sort of divided into two sections. The entire bottom part of this picture is divided into organic shapes, organic lines, and this is where all the people are concentrated. The top part of the painting is divided into geometric shapes and lines, rectangles and diagonals. Interestingly enough, the painting is also grouped together in some informal compositions at the bottom. The first triangle seems to encapsulate the people on the right, while the second triangle encapsulated the people on the left. But you'll notice there's one little girl that's overlapped in the center. She's her own special triangle. Let's find out who these people are in the painting. Well, the first person that I think is in this painting that's so cool is Diego Velázquez himself. He put himself in his own picture, standing there, looking right out at the viewer, and you can see that he's holding a canvas and a brush. He's working on a big painting, and it kind of makes me wonder what it is that he is painting. The other main person in the picture is the little princess. She was overlapped by both triangles, which lets us know she's probably pretty important. This is the Princess Margarita, King Philip's daughter. Margarita is surrounded on either side by her meninas. Those are the princess's maids of honor. To the right are two court entertainers. Behind them are the governess and the male chaperone. And the queen's chamberlain is at the back door, which makes us think that the princess's parents must be here somewhere if the queen's main assistant is there. Some people think that the queen's parents, or the queen and her husband, the princess's parents, are actually reflected in the mirror. Some people think that that is actually us looking into the picture. What do you think? Now, Velázquez liked to use highlights, shadows, and midtones to create a believable light source. Can you find Velázquez's light source in Las Meninas? That's right, the light is coming from the window on the right. And conveniently, this light falls in right over top of the princess, letting us know once again that she is the most important person in this picture. But what does it all mean? Well, Las Meninas, first of all, is a 9.5 foot wide by 10 foot tall painting. It's really big. It's really enormous. Velázquez, like other Baroque artists, wants to involve the viewer in the painting. And one way he does this is with the size. You can also notice that many people in this painting are looking right towards the viewer. they're making eye contact with us. And that's one way that Diego Velázquez involves us in the painting. Can you find the people that are looking right out at us? There's a couple, actually. I think Diego himself is looking at us, as is the princess, and possibly those people in the mirror. Do you think they're looking actually, do you think any of them are looking at us? Or do you think they're looking at the king and queen who are standing on the other side of the picture plane? That's one of the things about this painting that makes it so exciting. Are the king and queen really there? Is that a painting in the background? Is it a mirror? Is it us? It's so interesting to think about all of these things. But please know that Baroque artists want to involve the viewer in the painting, and Velázquez does this by maintaining eye contact with the people that are viewing the portrait. That's very important to know for your quiz. Now, why does Velázquez add personal details in this painting, like his own self-portrait, or the keys to the palace, or showing the knight's crest on his shirt? These are all details that must have taken him extra time, so there must be a real reason for it. Well, most scholars think that this painting is supposed to represent Diego Velázquez's attempt to achieve respect for himself and for art in general. Here's some great questions for you to consider. In fact, these extension questions can be K-mailed to your teacher for extra credit, or you can go right ahead and put them in the Unit 1 extra credit Dropbox. Is this a self-portrait of the artist? Is it a tribute to the princess? Where are the king and queen? Are they even here? Are they posing for the artist's painting, or is the mirror reflecting the artist's work? Are the subjects looking at us, or are they looking at the king and queen standing in front of the scene? You try to answer some of those questions and put your answers in the Unit 1 extra credit Dropbox, and we'll be sure to award you some bonus points for all of your hard work. Now let's take a look at the other artist in today's lesson, Nicolas Poussin. Nicolas Poussin is a French Baroque painter who follows that Royal Academy style suggestions and adopts classical ideas in his paintings. He was born in Normandy, France in 1594 and moved to Rome by the age of 20. He actually spent his entire career in Rome, even though he's known as a French painter. The reason is he got all of his commissions from French patrons. That means that the people in France were the ones who were asking him to do the paintings, even though he spent his entire life in Rome. Remember, during this time period in the 17th century, France was the most powerful country in Europe, and Louis XIV tapped the finest talents to glorify his monarchy with a palace of unparalleled splendor. We're going to take a look at his palace Versailles, but this kind of comes into play because he asked Nicolas Poussin to do a painting for him. Now, normally, if the king of the country asks you to do a painting, you're going to do everything that you can to do this painting. However, Nicolas Poussin was so passionately interested in antiquity and the French Academy's rules for classical paintings that when the king asked Nicolas Poussin to paint the ceiling of Versailles, he actually refused to conform to the prevailing code of soaring saints. People don't fly through the air, he said with faultless logic, and because of this, he lost the commission and had to return back to his beloved Roman ruins. Poussin's artistic vision was that a painter's role was not to merely paint what he saw, but to carefully arrange the natural elements into beautifully idealized, orderly compositions. Now, this might remind you of another time period that we've already studied. Hopefully it's making you think of Greece and Rome with all that order, all that mathematical, controlled, orderly compositions. It worked for them, so it worked for Poussin, and really it fell right in line with the French Royal Academy's guidelines of painting and sculpture, even if it didn't let him do the king's ceiling. Poussin achieved his vision by painting narratives. Remember that narratives are pictures that tell a story. And his narratives focused on biblical, historical, or literary tales. Let's take a closer look at one of his most well-known paintings, the landscape with the burial of Phaethon. This landscape with the burial of Phaeacian focuses on the story of a heroic Greek general. Go figure. You know that Nicholas Poussin loved Greek and Rome, so of course this painting is all about a heroic Greek general who was sadly put to death on false charges of treason. Now, the other Baroque artists might have shown the gripping trial or the dramatic moment of execution, but Poussin paints a very solemn transport of the body to the burial grounds. His focus was on an ideal composition, not drama. And that's something you absolutely need to know for the 1.06 quiz. Nicholas Poussin is not interested in drama-rama. He wants that ideal, organized, orderly composition. Now, Poussin was known for painting scenes with great beauty and important messages, and arranging them with emotional restraint. Here's another extension question for you. How would this painting look different if it was painted by our Italian devil, Caravaggio? What kind of drama, what kind of lighting, what kind of composition would Caravaggio have done if he was painting the Greek general who was put to death on false charges of treason? Something to think about, and a great way for you to earn some extra bonus points to let us know that you listened to this recorded lesson on 1.06, the Baroque of Spain and France. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please review this lesson in your text and your reading guide, and then go ace that quiz. Good luck, everyone.